This is TWiT.
So let's talk about the iPhone 8, because I think if this analyst and probably everybody else who's highly bullish on Apple is expecting a very exciting new release. One of the rumors coming from not just Ming-Chi, who of course has great sources in the supply chain, but now Mark Gurman is saying the same thing. It may be that the high-end OLED bezel-less iPhone won't have Touch ID.
That's a sound of shock.
That sounds like half of a story. That sounds like someone knows that the sensor that they were expecting to see is not there. But which is not to say that Apple has not put Touch ID someplace else, or they have not replaced it with something that they think is just as good. But I can't imagine what that could be. So
the rumor is that they have tried putting the fingerprint reader in other places and not been happy with the results. However, what Apple will do, and actually this sounds very Apple-y, is put in 3D sensing for facial recognition. We know that these cameras will have more capabilities, and iris scanning, and that they're of the opinion this is more secure than a fingerprint. It would have to be.
It's interesting in that
I'll just say that's a very Samsung-y sort of way to approach authentication. It kind of ignores the fact that Touch ID is something that you can activate while you're just basically moving your phone into position. If they can do real 3D face sensing, it'll be a breakthrough for such a device. If they can do iris scanning in such a way that it's not, oh, what time is my flight? Align, target, widen eyes, look, hold. Well, okay, my plane is on time. That will also be unprecedented in this space. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
So the thing,
I think that more people will use the 3D facial stuff for selfies and their Snapchat stuff than they will. I mean, if you think about what it will do to selfies, I think it's going to be more impactful to people buying the phone. Is they'll suddenly have a 3D of the phone, and if we thought the tracking was good before, just imagine how good it's going to be when we've got a 3D version of your head.
Yeah, I mean, I think nobody questions. Go ahead, Renee. Poor Renee has not been able to.
No worries. No worries. The way I look at it, at least, is that Apple has finished this. Like, as far as hardware is done, this phone is finished. They're not lingering at the trying parts in like Lego.
It's too late now.
Try this.
Yeah.
So this phone is done. The only question, we are 3 to 6 months behind Apple. Like they literally live in the future because they're working on the next 2 or 3 iPhones. So we're just trying to figure out, based on the information we have, which one of those options they chose. Now their goal was to get the most infinity of infinity displays onto this phone, like as much glass and as little bezel as possible, and that meant changing the way Touch ID worked, because it just wouldn't work with a screen like that. And they've tried technology that works under the phone, and maybe or maybe not that worked. And they tried putting it on the back, and maybe or maybe they didn't like that. But Touch ID is just a feature. It's not a thing unto itself. It doesn't have to be there. It was one way to solve making authentication more convenient, because it's not really security. It's more of a username than a password. And if they feel like they can do what they said is they can get more points of identification off of 3D scanning than they can get off of fingerprint, their job is evangelism. The same way people were dubious about Touch ID in the beginning, they'll be dubious about face scanning in the beginning. But they have to solve several problems to make this work. This is not an easy technology either. Samsung famously makes you choose between iris scanning and face scanning at the beginning, and one works in low light and one works in bright light, and one can be fooled by photos and the other one can't be fooled by photos. And that's a tough problem to solve. But Apple is uniquely positioned as a company that has a lot of resources and has full control of everything along the stack to sort of bring that sort of technology to market, the same way they did with Touch ID when the previous sort of generation of fingerprint scanners weren't really ideal either. So if they did in fact go with facial scanning because Touch ID wasn't workable, it's just because they believe that it's just as good, if not better, a solution. And the biggest question to me is, like, do you get banks and credit unions to go along with it without ever seeing it work in the real world or being tested in the real world, saying, okay, yeah, we're fine with Apple Pay anyway. We trust you guys to do this. Or do we have to wait, until it's been on the market for several months before they get back on board?
And Andy and I both know that Touch ID on the back works, well, fingerprint reading on the back works quite well on Google's phones, but that doesn't mean Apple would necessarily like it. It's not that it wouldn't work, but as you said,
this could be better.
Accurately
phrased. Legitimately be better.
Yeah, and that would be the thing.
Yeah.
While So right now, the face recognition we've seen, and Microsoft has it with Windows Hello in some of their systems, and other people using Windows, and Samsung has it in their Galaxy S8. The ones we've seen are slower.
Yes.
And you have to position the phone properly.
I believe they're 2D. I'm not sure if they do 3D.
They don't use
phone.
the same technology. Yeah. That's right.
They use a combination of regular cameras on infrared to basically trying to fool static photos.
That's Although we know that the Samsung Galaxy S8 has been spoofed, both of the iris and the face scanning.
The Apple one is supposed to do points of identification the way a fingerprint does, and then also do it in milliseconds, which is way faster than I think a lot of them.
So that would be the two issues, of course. It has to be at least as secure, preferably more secure than fingerprint, because Apple Pay relies on it. And it has to be as convenient and as fast, or faster, which means you shouldn't have to. With the Galaxy S8, you have to position the phone. In fact, they even put little eyes.
Right. So this supposedly doesn't. This one you could do it on a table. Apparently, it can
that would be the key, right?
Various angles.
It just knows it's me, and it I don't have to do anything. It just knows, and that would be better than fingerprint because I wouldn't have to do anything. It would just know. Right?
Well, and I also think that there's an opportunity. I mean, if they included fingerprint or iris or a backup, almost a two-part authentication with these biometrics, you could theoretically not necessarily be forced to do it this way, but have the option of saying, I want to know that my watch is on, that I'm in vicinity, you're going to look at my face. And I mean, and there's some people that would really prefer to have all of those things added to it to make it, very, very secure.
Right.
And as you get to a point where you really feel like it's really working, like right now, I still have a handful of times when I need to actually still use my keypad rather than my fingerprint. When you feel like it's rock solid, you could theoretically either make a much longer keypad entry or get rid of it.
So here's Mark Gurman's quote. So Ming-Chi Kuo, you'd expect to know something because he has good supply chain sources. And as you pointed out, Renee, the phone's done. Are they making it yet? Probably, right?
I think they're for order. Yeah, they're going to start getting component orders in.
Yeah. So they're tooling up. The factories are tooling up. Prototypes exist. So it wouldn't be surprising. But you've got to program
against that hardware. Like you can't just keep moving hard. And again, I might be totally wrong. There might be people laughing at me at Apple right now, but I believe you can't. You can't just keep changing the hardware and expect the software team to catch up.
Yeah.
And ship a product.
So here's Gurman's quote. He says they're testing face recognition. The company's also testing eye scanning to augment the system. The sensor's speed and accuracy are focal points of the feature. It can scan a user's face and unlock the iPhone within a few hundred milliseconds, the person said. Gurman has really good sources, so, consider that. It's designed to work even if the device is lying flat on a table rather than just close up to the face. We got to explain to Mark the difference in laying and lying, but that's okay. Lying flat on the table.
Bloomberg editors.
Yeah, Bloomberg at least, yeah. No, nobody has copy editors anymore. The feature is still being tested and may not appear with the new device. That's an important sentence. A number of people sent me that or tweeted me that when I first reported this story. They said the feature is still being tested and may not appear with a new device. However, the intent is for it to replace the Touch ID fingerprint scanner. Apple, of course, refuses. Or declines.
It would have to be there, though. I mean, like you can do something like enabling a feature like portrait mode after you ship it, but you can't go in and retroactively put the sensor in the case.
Yeah. The hardware. This is hardware stuff as well as software. I wouldn't mind if it's fast, and maybe this would only appear on the high-end OLED iPhone, and the other ones could continue to have Touch ID.